Good Erev Shabbos, Parshas Shemos, as we begin the book of Exodus. The Chadush Harim, the founder of the Ger school of Hasidic practice, points out that in much the same way as we read a few weeks ago in Parshas Miketz about how Joseph's liberation from prison and his rise to greatness all happened in one fell swoop, as it said, in one single sentence. Similarly, here in the book of Shemos of Exodus, we have this one particular parsha, this one that we're starting the book off with, which opens in exile. But already by the time we've reached the end of the book, the end of this portion, we are already dealing with the redemptive process. The redemption has already begun. So the situations wherein we find ourselves contending that appear to be so negative are actually the seeds of our future liberation and realization. We've had occasion to remark that on the Jewish penchant for taking the most negative situation and turning it into a positive. I mentioned last week about how Rachel called her son Binyamin, she called him Ben Oni, meaning the son of my travail, and how Jacob, many years later, blessing Reuven, uses the same word as when he says Reshet Oni, the beginning of my strength. We eat matzah on Pesach to celebrate our freedom, when matzah is essentially the food that we ate as slaves in Egypt. We see boys and girls today wearing Magen Davids. A few short decades ago, that was a sign of stigma. And so we have this knack for taking things that are trying to put us down, and we turn it around and make it something that's going to be positive. In fact, the very words in English, negative and positive, kind of give us an indication of that. The end of both those words, etiv, comes from the Hebrew. Tov v'hameti, it means to make better, implying that even if the situation is good, positive, make it even better. And if it's if it seems to be an undesirable situation, negative, I'm going to take it, I'm going to improve it and make it better. So here too, we can derive a lesson from our stay in Egypt. When did the Galus begin? When did the exile actually start? Jacob died, the brothers passed on, the original 70 souls went their way, and finally we find ourselves, all 15 million of us, gathering clay and straw, mushing them together and baking them in an oven to produce bricks. Why are we doing that? Because we're building these treasure houses for Pharaoh of Pitom and Ramses. And in a land that's not blessed with great forestry, like Egypt, either you're going to use rocks and stones that are already in place, or you're going to have to build bricks if you're going to build. So in other words, there are materials that are ready at hand, organically available, and then there are those that are artificial and actually require manufacture. Truth is that both methods require effort, getting the stuff together, making sure that it fits, putting it into place, finishing off rough edges. Difference lies in the origin of the material. So the lowest ebb of our Egyptian prototypical exile was characterized by the collection of mud and straw to make bricks. Not exactly the noblest elements of our character, of our nature. Because if you will, in our personal lives, stones represent solid elements that are naturally qualified to serve as building materials, as we're charged with the mandate of building a home for God in this world. And they lend themselves to that end, those rocks, those positive character traits, the special sacred times that there are in our calendar, the special places in creation like the Shabbat, like Eretz Yisrael, scrolls that are designed and designated for the performance of a mitzvah, like a Torah scroll or tefillin, mezuzahs. But there are other elements in our nature that are as qualified for building material as raw clay. There's our selfish animalistic instincts, our prides, our ego, our greed. And there's a material world all around us that obscures the truth of God's presence as its creator. And those are elements that by nature are not conducive to religiosity, to spirituality, to godly awareness, to building a home for God. In fact, they seem even contrary to anything good and godly. The problem is the solution. And so the challenge is to find a way to include those elements in that dwelling place for God, to take those parts of ourselves that seem more shadow than light, those aspects of our existence that seem more trouble and adversity than something that's helping us. And nevertheless, we have to take those situations and turn them into the opportunities to make a home for God. It means that we have to forge bricks sometimes. We have to mold them into a shape that they don't normally readily go into. We need to fire them in a kiln of self-sacrifice, of love of God and love of each other, until they become as solid and as supportive as the sacred stones of our home for God that we're building. Hashem should grant each of us the wisdom and the strength to be able to deal with everything that comes our way, both the blatantly good and the bricks that are still clay waiting to be shaped into good. The pause and the neg, and we should be able to achieve them. We should make them good, we should make them better, and we should be able to share in that goodness together. Shabbat Shalom.